The LCS has a clear frontrunner in CLOUD9, and then there's a pack of 5 teams with 8-4 or 7-5 records, all nipping at their heels. The question is, out of 100 Thieves, Dignitas, Evil Geniuses, TSM, and Team Liquid, which team has the best toolkit to take down CLOUD9 in a best of 5? Here's how I would rank their chances. At 5, I have Dignitas. Dig were tied for second in the LCS at the end of Week 3 with a 6-3 record. There was some debate about whether they were the real deal, but their advanced gold metrics made it pretty clear that their win total was misleading. They ranked 6th in GSPD and 7th in GPR. If you're not familiar, GSPD, or gold spent percentage difference, measures the margin of victory at the end of the game, and GPR, or gold percent rating, measures how much a team plays from ahead or behind. Dig were playing from behind a lot, with the 3rd worst early game rating in the league and very poor lane and jungle control, showing that they weren't playing the map efficiently, but they were finding ways to win team fights and literally steal games.
Down to 2K, Dardock's trying to go in, Dardock to the pin, he got it! Dardock with the 1v5 Baron stealing it, TSM!
In Week 4, CLG flipped the script on Dignitas and stole some late game teamfights of their own. Now Dig are sitting in the 6th place spot that their numbers said they deserved. Next up, I have 100 Thieves. Their 8-4 record has them tied for second in the standings with TSM, and they're good enough to beat any other team on this list, but as we saw in Week 4, they don't match up well against CLOUD9 stylistically. 100 Thieves have the second best early game in the LCS right now, reaching the 15-minute mark with an average win probability over 60%. Their greatest strengths are their side lanes. FBI and Huhi are dominant 2v2 laners, though you have to bear in mind here that Huhi's laning numbers are inflated, and FBI's are slightly deflated because of their use of fasting Senna. Someday is one of the best top laners in the league at every stage of the game too, though his laning stats haven't been the best since 100T play through the bottom side of the map so much. The problem for 100T's early game, against CLOUD9 specifically, comes in the mid lane.
Distortion, but he barely misses the AoE on Distortion, so now he flashes after it, he grabs the first blood. Damonte, what are you doing?
Damonte is a good player, but he's vulnerable to someone as decisive as Perks. And if 100T can't get a strong foothold against CLOUD9 in the lane phase, I'm not confident in their ability to win late. The next challenger up is Evil Geniuses. From some perspectives, they could sit even higher on this list. Their early game has been almost as good as 100 Thieves, and they rank 3rd in GPR. They play the map pretty well, with decent jungle and lane control numbers. And handling Perks in lane isn't an issue for EG. Jizuke has the strongest laning numbers of any mid in the league so far. EG even beat CLOUD9 in Week 2 on the strength of an early lead and good map play, but their big problem is a tendency to throw games by chasing bad fights. I'd be less concerned if we were 1 or 2 weeks into the year, but they've had a couple of months together now, and I haven't seen real improvement in that area. I'm sure EG's coaching staff will eventually put some ointment on the players' itchy trigger fingers, but until I see that change, I can't put them higher on this list. That brings us to the top 2 contenders, TSM and Team Liquid. TL are a very strong candidate to beat C9 because of their powerful early game, statistically the best in the league according to early game rating. Alphari's top lane dominance is especially valuable since it allows TL to target Fudge, who has been a weak point for C9 relatively speaking. If TL can get leads through the top side of the map, they can set up for a mid-game snowball and punish C9 when they inevitably get aggressive to try to force a comeback. The problem is that TL haven't been good enough at snowballing. They're the best in the league at earning gold leads, but when you look at games where they were up at least 500 gold at 15, you'll see that both C9 and TSM do a much better job of increasing their advantage over the next 10 minutes. Sometimes that has been due to a lack of coordination in TL's map pressure and playmaking, and sometimes it's come from individual mistakes.
Solo goal for loss, that is pretty big.
Oh, not again! He's just dead!
TL's massive gold leads can cover over a multitude of sins, but they still have a lot to clean up in their play. TSM, for their part, had a very rough start to the split, not just because they lost their first 2 games, but because they looked completely disjointed. But after those losses, they put together a 6-game win streak, and a comeback win over Team Liquid in Week 4 should have them feeling pretty good about their trajectory, even with a setback against FlyQuest. TSM are looking better as time goes on, making noticeable improvements in their GPR and jungle control, and using that control to come out ahead more often in teamfights. On an individual level, Lost has been rounding into the form I expected from him, and Huni is looking more comfortable too.
Ignar approaches from the side, goes in for the Magnet Storm to try to keep Sword Art locked down, but Huni's grabbing the kill on Jizuke. It's a double kill over to Huni. It's TSM.
Ultimately, both of these teams are capable of taking down CLOUD9. But while I would pick Team Liquid to beat TSM if they played head-to-head, I actually think TSM will have a better chance against C9 in best of fives. Partly because they look a bit more strategically flexible than TL, and partly because TSM are on a better growth curve, which should have them in good shape by the time the spring playoffs arrive. The double elimination format of the midseason showdown means we get to see a whole bunch of BO5s featuring most or all of the teams we just discussed, and it starts in just a few weeks. So it won't be long before we find out whether my rankings are on the mark.
Hello, it is I, Travis Gafford, speaking to you live from this pre-recorded video, which means it's not live, to tell you about Alienware. Alienware.com/Travis, Travis10off is the code that you want to use. That's in the description of this video, just in case you don't feel like rewinding it again to check them out. But it's very important that you check out that Alienware website, because if you don't, then it's harder for me to make these videos, because they just decide that everyone has decided to hate me, and then it all goes away. Everything I built, this media empire, it just hangs on the precipice of you clicking that link and checking their stuff out. I mean, that's a little dramatic. I'm exaggerating. It's not actually that crazy, but it's 2021. It's all about creating a sense of urgency. Like everything has to be urgent. And that's what I'm trying to do with this. Because if it's not urgent, then you're going to think something else is urgent because somebody else made a Twitter post about something. And then you'll think, well, that's more urgent than the thing Travis is talking about in his outro. And that's kind of where humanity has gone. And so it's forced me to do outros like this. And, but you know what is urgent?